In July 2023, former intelligence officer David Grusch sat before the House Oversight Committee and made a claim that should have shaken Washington to its foundations. The U.S. government, he alleged, was running a multi-decade UAP retrieval and reverse engineering program funded by billions of dollars annually, hidden in misappropriated budget lines, and operating entirely outside congressional oversight. Not millions, billions per annum. Grusch didn't stumble into this claim. He made it under oath, as a former co-lead of the UAP task force, with the backing of the Intelligence Community Inspector General, who found his complaint credible and urgent. Before Congress, Grusch identified what he described as a web of special access programs managed across multiple agencies, with the Defense Intelligence Agency playing a central coordinating role. In his earlier June 2023 interviews with NewsNation's Ross Coulthart, Grusch was more specific. He alleged that funding was being deliberately obscured through accounting mechanisms within the Department of Defense, routed through contractor intermediaries, and shielded from the congressional committees legally entitled to oversee them. He named no single program. Instead, he described a system, one designed, he said, not just for secrecy, but for deniability. According to Grusch, even members of the Gang of Eight, the senior congressional leaders with the highest clearance access, had been denied briefings. To evaluate Grusch's claims, you need to understand how classified spending actually functions. The U.S. intelligence budget is split into two major streams: the National Intelligence Program, overseen by the Director of National Intelligence, and the Military Intelligence Program, managed by the Department of Defense. In fiscal year 2024, their combined unclassified top line exceeded $90 billion. Within these budgets exist Special Access Programs, SAPs, which impose extreme compartmentalization. Waived SAPs go further, restricting notification to as few as 8 members of Congress. But even waived SAPs have legal reporting requirements. The question Grusch raised is simple and devastating. What happens when those requirements are ignored? Congressional oversight of intelligence activities rests on the National Security Act of 1947, amended repeatedly, most significantly by the Intelligence Oversight Act of 1980 and the FY 1991 Intelligence Authorization Act. Under Title 50, the executive branch must keep congressional intelligence committees fully and currently informed of all intelligence activities, including covert actions. The law is unambiguous. Any program spending appropriated funds must be reported, at minimum, to the Gang of Eight. If Grusch's allegations are accurate, that programs exist spending billions without any congressional notification, that wouldn't be a policy disagreement. It would be a violation of federal law.
Multiple former congressional staffers have echoed this concern publicly. Grusch didn't make these claims in isolation. Intelligence Community Inspector General Thomas Monaheim confirmed to Congress that Grusch's complaint had been received and deemed credible and urgent, the highest priority designation. Senator Marco Rubio stated publicly in July 2023 that first-hand witnesses had come forward to the Senate Intelligence Committee describing programs they alleged were improperly hidden from Congress. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, chair of the Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats, pressed Pentagon officials repeatedly through 2023 and 2024 for full SAP disclosures related to UAP. Their responses, she noted on the record, were incomplete. None of this proves Grusch's claims, but it establishes that senior legislators found them worth investigating aggressively. The legislative response tells its own story. In late 2023, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Mike Rounds introduced the UAP Disclosure Act as an amendment to the FY 2024 National Defense Authorization Act. The original language was extraordinary. It would have established an empowered review board with eminent domain authority over recovered materials and mandated declassification timelines. The final version, signed into law in December 2023, was gutted. The eminent domain provision was stripped. Key enforcement mechanisms were removed. Schumer publicly blamed lobbying by defense contractors and unnamed intelligence officials. The implication was clear. Someone with significant power wanted to ensure that whatever programs might exist would remain untouched. There's a structural detail that makes Grusch's financial claims harder to dismiss. The Department of Defense has never passed a comprehensive financial audit. In its 6th consecutive failed audit in late 2023, the DoD could not account for roughly 61% of its assets. Trillions in transactions remain unsupported by adequate documentation. This doesn't confirm secret UAP programs, but it confirms something arguably just as alarming. The accounting infrastructure that would be necessary to hide such programs already exists, not by design perhaps, but by systemic dysfunction.
If someone wanted to bury billions in this environment, the conditions are permissive. The story continued evolving. In March 2024, AARO released Volume 1 of its historical review, concluding it found no verifiable evidence of UAP reverse engineering claims. Critics, including Grusch's legal counsel Charles Macaulay III, himself a former ICIG, argued the review was jurisdictionally limited, relying on self-reporting from the very agencies under scrutiny. Through 2024 and into 2025, additional whistleblowers reportedly contacted the ICIG and congressional committees. The FY 2025 NDAA preserved and expanded UAP transparency provisions, though again without the enforcement teeth of Schumer's original framework.
Meanwhile, the newly established All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office continued operating with what multiple congressional members described as insufficient access to relevant SAPs. Strip away the question of what UAPs are. The constitutional issue stands on its own. If any executive branch entity is operating programs costing billions of taxpayer dollars without legally required congressional notification, that represents a fundamental breakdown in democratic governance. It doesn't matter whether those programs involve exotic technology, advanced conventional platforms, or something else entirely. The principle is the same. Congress holds the power of the purse. That is not optional. David Grusch may be wrong. His allegations may ultimately be unsubstantiated. But the institutional resistance to transparent investigation, the gutted legislation, the failed audits, the incomplete briefings, that pattern is documented, and it demands an answer that hasn't yet been given.